Yeah. All right. So yeah, we got, hey, Judith is here. Woo! And what's really fun for us is that we have a smaller list of people who are attending today. So feel free to say anything you want because I can cut it out if it's like something wonky. So you know what, we could go totally wild and be free to be completely ourselves. So I'll go formal for a minute and then we'll go back into conversation. So, okay, welcome everybody. Welcome to PYF Women in March. We have this opportunity to meet every single month and just talk about the things that you're thinking about. So that's one of my, what I'm thinking is going to be our motto. We say what you're thinking related to being a woman in the world today. Right. And so if you go to the website, I'll drop the link in a little bit, but it's structured shifts. And so what we say with PYF Women is that PYF women are invited to join the conversations because they demonstrate characteristics of excellence that make the world a better place. And I'm going to drop what those are in the chat so that people can see it. But suffice it to say that every single woman in this room right now is exactly this. They are genuinely kind. They talk up the women who aren't in the room, hold space, model being a work in progress and still amazing at the same time. So every single one of you have a really high bar to show off exactly who you are in all those areas today. No pressure, right? Cool. All right. So we're going to dive in. Our planning meeting was so much fun that I was telling everybody here that, I just wanted to show that. And then we should do, what we should do? You remember Mystery Science Theater? Where they'd watch the movie and talk about it. Oh, yeah. We should do that.
They comment on the movie. That's funny.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. That'd be totally fun. We're going to think about that. So maybe that'll be what we do after we do the women's experience with Ted Lasso, right?
What movie would you watch?
No, I think we'd watch Us. And I think we'd watch Us and then, comment on our. Okay, Suzanne's not in.
No,
I know that idea. Not today. So a couple
I'd be that movie star that would never see my own movies.
Yeah,
never watch your own. Yeah. Well, I was just talking to Emily before y'all came on that I said every time I watch video of myself, my glasses are crooked. And I keep trying to fix them and I'm not sure why, but I'm so nervous about it right now that they're going to end up like this because they always do. And I'm not sure what happens. So that's what we're self-conscious about here. All the important things that we're talking about. See, they're doing it. I think my eyebrows might be, or my ears might be off, or my hearing aids. I think it's my hearing aids. Anyway, back to the point. So let's do a quick round robin of introductions. Just say who you are and anything about you. If you want to say where you work, if you want to say what your favorite color is or what you want to be when you grow up, let us know. Diana, you want to start?
Diana Hawari, CIO, Dysart, Unified School District in Surprise, Arizona. And I'm happy to be here. This is one of my favorite things to do.
This is my favorite time of the month, favorite day of the month. I don't want to say time of the month.
Too late.
Too late. I said it. Sapani, talk to us. Tell us
Hi.
who you are.
I'm Sapani Tipke from Chandler Unified School District, where I am an instructional technology specialist. And this is my jam, and I am so honored to be a part of this group of wonderful ladies.
So excited. And note that she is on spring break right now.
Yes, I am.
Still here today. And so is Suzanne, who's going to talk to us for a second. And then Emily, Diana, you're not, right? We're part of the working world this day. Okay, Suzanne, tell us about yourself.
I'm Suzanne Brazel, and I work in the Vail School District. I'm what's called a site technology coordinator for my school. I work at a K-8 in Vail, and I'm just really honored to be here. This is an amazing group of women, so thank you.
We're so lucky. Emily, tell us about yourself.
I'm Emily Marshall. I'm the assistant director of Ed Tech in Vail, and I am not happy to be here.
You're not. You're not.
I just want to,
it's like Laura made me.
I want to see Laura's face. No, I'm super excited.
She wants to see me cry. I haven't cried yet this week, So that's what it is. Once per meeting, Laura cries these days. So, and I'm going to say she's not happy to be here. She's thrilled to be here.
I am. I'm so excited.
That's where I thought you were gonna go. So okay, now we're gonna start hitting you guys with questions. So, a couple things we're gonna talk about today. We're gonna talk about authenticity. We spent a lot of time talking about that in the our planning conversation. I've got a bug. Imposter syndrome and powerful circles. And so today I was up at like 4:30 this morning and I was on Facebook because that's what you do at 4:30 in the morning. But anyway, and I came across a quote that of course I don't have in front of me right now, but it was, Leslie Higgins from Ted Lasso. And he was talking about, and I'll find it at some point while we're talking, but he was talking about asking for help. And the way that you grow is by asking for help and accepting it where you can. And that's how you move forward. And of course, at the time, I was like, oh, that's really nice. And I reposted it as, this is such a fun thing. And then, like 10 minutes later, I was like, crap, I guess maybe that was meant for me because, I'm doing a lot of things and I never want to ask for help. Right? I just want to act like I've got it all together. I've got it all figured out. And I don't have anything figured out, And so you all have been people who I've taken that chance to ask for help and nobody's like unfriended me yet. So I guess it's possible that asking for help is a good thing and accepting help. But I don't know if historically in the workplace that's been something that we've all felt comfortable doing. So I guess that's where I wanted to say, like, what do you feel you need to show when you're showing like your work self? Is it allowing us to show vulnerability? Is asking for help okay? Like, what does that look like as a woman in the workplace in 2024, or even go back to 2004 if you were there? 1994, how far can I go back? Yeah. Who wants to tackle that and talk to us about it?
I think it's changed over the years. At least it has for me. The Diana that was entering into education IT in the 90s to me now. I very much closed off, very much me on my own, and too afraid to share anything. I wasn't going to share anything that somebody could think of was a weakness because I had to be strong. And then, but now I've noticed, even not just now, even for the last couple of years, when I lead my team, I really, my maternal instincts take over, and like I want my team to know, I find myself seriously talking to them the way I would talk to my kids sometimes. And I use a lot of examples of my kids when I do have conversations with my team about what my expectations are, what we should be doing. But I do also find myself too, when you talk about asking for help, it is hard to ask for help, but what I find myself doing is letting them know if they need help, they can come to me. I find that a lot. I find myself in talking to my team going, if you need help on anything, you just have to tell me. Just tell me and you'll get it. I will get you help. If it's not me, I will find somebody. If it's personal, you can come and talk to me and close my door. I'm always now like, even though I'm not the greatest at asking for help, I feel like I'm pushing others to like, you can always ask for help. There's always help. And some of them always look at me like, yeah, we know, you, like my kids do. You told us already. We already know. You don't have to keep saying it. And but I find myself like, seriously, don't suffer alone. You don't have to be, just talk to me. And so I do find that just in growing myself, not so much, I'm not really asking for help as much as I should be, but I find myself kind of projecting to others.
The openness to it.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like asking for help is kind of walking the talk, because as a mom, as a wife, as in, whatever position you have, you're kind of used to being the one that has the answers or being able to be the one to help others. But that is not walking the talk, because you want to be there for others, which is kind of our innate human, characteristic that we have as females. But we're also not doing a good job of modeling what that looks like by asking for help ourselves. So it is vulnerable. And, if you thought, like Diana was mentioning, this is a sign of weakness to ask for help, we're actually sabotaging ourselves for our own personal growth and for those who are watching, because you are the world your world is who you are around you. So if you want to create this environment where people are helping each other, you got to play that role. And that's hard, and that requires practice and work. And I will tell you, I'm still working at it.
Scary. Yeah.
That's a really interesting point too, because when we first started talking about this, I feel like I'm pretty good at being vulnerable. Like I'm the first person to be like, yeah, I messed that up, or I failed that test or whatever it is. But then when you switch it and talk about asking for help, I'm not good at that. So that was like a really interesting switch in my mind as Diana and Sapani were talking. I guess good in some ways and not good in other ways.
But I think there's a difference between I'm really good at being vulnerable by like taking the blame for everything and apologizing constantly, right? Even things that maybe weren't my fault. And I think I'm coming to the realization now that I say I don't need to apologize for everything, but that's really hard not to do, because that's so ingrained in us, is just taking responsibility. And now sometimes it's okay for it not to apologize. Like, this is the way it is. And I think that's just getting older in a way, but like, I don't feel like I have to apologize for everything. And I think, and I know, like, I worked for years, I worked for a man who kind of wanted you to drown before you asked for help. Like, that was kind of ingrained in our job to not ask for help. And I will say now that it made a group of women who really relied on each other, who we learned to ask each other for help. And that was like, he didn't mean to make us a powerful force, but he made us a powerful force. So it's funny how that can be.
Unintentional benefit,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
I learned, and interestingly, a couple of things I was thinking about, like as Diana and then Sapani were speaking, the idea around asking for help. Like, I was in sales before I was in education. I was in financial services sales. And one of the things that we were trained to do was, whenever we went in somewhere, was to ask for something. Like, when you walked in, you asked the woman at the front desk, sorry, the person at the front desk, it was always a woman back then, can I borrow a pen? Can I borrow something, a Post-it, a sticky note? And the idea was to ask for help because it created a connection, right? And so it created that just a touch of vulnerability and just a touch of a connection that wouldn't have been there otherwise. And so the idea, by letting somebody help you with something, and we take that bigger now, right? Because we take it, like, think about with our kids when they're little, like how often we let them help us with something, right? Or, the idea that when we delegate, we give somebody else the opportunity to do something. So asking for help is so scary. Like, I had it last week, the CETL meeting, when I asked you guys. Yes. Okay. So I messed something up. I felt like so royally at the CETL meeting last week that I was literally in tears. I was in tears. I was so, and I don't know if it was really that big of a deal. Diana says no. But afterwards I said to Diana, I'm like, can you stay on? Emily had to fly, so Emily couldn't stay. And Diana stayed, and who else? Maybe Elaine, I can't remember, but whoever else, Elaine, I think it was. Yeah, stayed and like pulled me off the ledge. And in the past, I would have just hung up and gone and felt bad about myself for the rest of the night. And instead I was like, you know what? I'm going to walk my talk, and I'm going to ask for help. And they made me feel so much better. But I still beat myself up a little bit about it later, because, that's how you do, or that's how I do. But yeah, it was asking for help in processing was like a really nice thing to have available.
Right.
But, and I actually asked Diana, I'm like, do you think Emily's mad at me? She's like, I haven't had a chance to find out if Emily's mad at me, but I was like, Emily's mad at me. Like, I'm a grown ass woman. And I'm like, like a
And we said,
12-year-old.
I don't think Emily's mad at you. Like, but I don't even know where you got it from. It was.
I think there's, you read people's body language, if you can misread body language. And when you've been, what do you say, Emily?
I was going to say, it made me think it's the book Sapani recommended. What is it that she talks about in the where it's like like what's true and like what are the stories
Oh
you make up
yeah,
about it?
that's
And that's
reality-based
what,
leadership
yeah.
by Cy Wakeman. Yes,
Mhm.
her first chapter I think is hilarious. And when I first read the title, I had that like what shocked, like thought about it because it's I actually have it here. It says you are the source of your own suffering, and that's the good news. And I
That's
was
the
like,
good
wow,
news.
and that's the good news. I was like,
Oh
and I
my
love it
gosh.
because I had to realize like I am the source of my own suffering, and it just
Causing
was
myself, yes, I'm
a
causing.
it was an interesting way, and I love how it's stated to kind of say like it's the narrative you make in your own
Yeah.
head, the own dots you're connecting, and it's not real outside of your head. And the good news is it's you. So you can change that as opposed to something that you can't change. So that chapter was great. And I've applied it to so many aspects of my life, even as a mom. I try to read into things of like my kids or my husband.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, I just made up a fictional story out of the blue. And then I also relate it to work too. And then look at all the negative energy that is spent on that.
Gosh.
Yeah.
So
I still am not sure if Emily's not mad at me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I've still got this going in my head, and I've talked to her at least 6 times since, and I've never took the chance, never thought about asking her. Maybe I don't want to know. I don't know. But yeah,
I'm not,
so
I'm
I
not mad.
think, oh, good. Now I feel better. Now we can all go home. Yeah, it's perfect. But and then the other thing that I learned before we move, I have to share this is there's this idea because it ties to what Suzanne said. I was working with a coach like way back when, my life was kind of like falling apart. And one of the things that he spoke to was the idea of hyper ownership
Mm.
is of hyper ownership as a means of like controlling our environment. And I thought that, and I always used to take hyper ownership, meaning like if anything happened, I would say, well, you know what? That's on me because like, if anything went wrong and if I could own any piece of it, I would hyper own the whole thing. And he was like, that's one, it's kind of like a trauma response, but it's also in the bigger picture, it's a way of hyper controlling your environment. So it's not you being nice. He was kind of harsh. Like he's like, you're not being nice. He's like, you're being controlling. And I was like, wow. And when I heard that, I was like, oh, well, now I don't feel as good. And he's like, that's not the point. You gotta love yourself just as you are. But anyway, so that was what flashed back to Suzanne when you were saying that about how you are, you're like, I'm letting this go. I don't think it's that we're getting older, although we are. I think it's that we're so much wiser than we were, right?
I should hope
You
so,
know?
right?
Yeah, if we have
Yeah.
gone this far and aren't, I don't know what to say.
Hey, Laura, I
Mhm.
think that you should, the idea that you are so worried about Emily being upset with you, I think you need to turn that and be like, it's because you value that relationship you had with Emily so much. I mean, because if you didn't
Oh.
care, you wouldn't actually waste a lot of time thinking about it, but you do care. So instead of putting it on the act of what you did to cause the possible ill feelings, it's more of like, hey, it's more that I value our relationship so much, and it's a little slight fear of it changing because of an action. So I think that's kudos, and it just speaks highly of your guys' relationship.
Again, that's because she is one of my favorite people on the planet. So yeah. Oh, look, see, now I'm teary. Okay, see, it already happened. Oh my gosh. And one of the things that like, did you mention this, honey? I think before we went live, but we were talking about wearing the mask. Because I just
Yes.
I wrote it down, but we talk about how wearing that professional mask all the time and being who we think, the world wants us to be. And I think you said it's exhausting,
Oh, it's so
right?
exhausting. So exhausting. I
Yeah.
mean, once you shed that mask of perfection that you want to be perceived by, then what's left behind is the real authentic self. And that is what grows. And that is what allows you to build stronger relationships with people, whether it's in a personal relationship, whether it's a professional relationship. You have to be authentic and take that mask off. It is exhausting. And it's freeing, you know?
I agree.
I think is. It's also terrifying, isn't it? Like
It is
as we
so
first
scary.
do it. Anybody agree? Like, you know, like I said, like
Yeah.
I talk about Diana as having these amazing like things that she just says, like, running over moms in the
Yes, that
carpool
doesn't think
line or
about, just
whatever.
comes out of their mouth. Yes, yes.
Just comes out of her mouth, and I love it. And I was like telling you, I was saying to y'all, I was gonna put some of those clips, like, and then I'm like, I gotta check with Diana. And Diana's like, you can say whatever you want, don't worry about it, as long as it's not too nice. I think that was what you no, that's not what you said, but it was close. All right. So we have this, and this is the question I'm going to go to, and this is going to be our big question that I did not ask you guys if we could talk about, but we're going to go to it. And then so it gives as we build up to it. But one of the things that I was really wondering as I was thinking is, does we talk about letting things go a lot, right? So we're going to go forward to this and then we're going to go back. So, but kind of build up to. And what wondering, does our letting it go when people are unkind? So we're going to go back and talk about people being unkind to us. But does that, by us letting it go, are we passively supporting acceptance of a culture where it's more acceptable to be unkind? So I'll say that one more time. Does
That's a
us
tough one.
letting it go, like for ourselves being like, we're going to take off our mask, we're going to let it go, and people are not kind to us or whatever, we're going to understand that it's them and not us. But does that, in some way, are we as leaders in the work that we do, are we passively supporting acceptance of a culture where it's more acceptable to be unkind? Like, is it somewhere in us that we're required, like is there an obligation on us to really be stepping up, to be modeling even more, but to be more proactive and assertive about the work that we're doing as we're doing work on ourselves and demonstrating for others? So I'm going to drop that in the middle of the room. And now I'm going to go back to something else because I'm loving your faces right now. Suzanne,
Like as soon
Suzanne,
as
what
you
do you
said that,
think
I had so many like different things going through my
Uh-huh.
head. And like as you talked, I'm like processing. I'm like, oh, what about this? And like I had like 4 different thoughts. Suzanne, were you saying
Suzanne's face is saying like a million things.
Well, because I feel like our culture is unkind now. I think the social media and our political climate has made our world, our culture very unkind. But at the same time, is if somebody's being unkind, letting it go isn't accepting of that. It's not meeting it where it is. It's maybe approaching it in a softer place, which usually drives people more crazy, makes it kind of funny too.
See, I don't like to even give
It
them,
just backed it up.
I don't like to give it oxygen, I guess. It's so for a lot of times, if somebody's unkind, like especially in a space where it's really not, you're not supposed to be having that type of, I won't even acknowledge because I don't feel like I want to give it any airtime at that point. So,
Nice.
especially like in a group and especially if it's at work, then I might have it, depending on if it's somebody who works for me, then I might have a side conversation with, that's not the place for this. But in a public, in a group, I won't even acknowledge because I feel like I don't want to give you any airtime for that. I don't want to even have that discussion because sometimes I feel like you're just saying that to get attention or to get some, and I'm not put up with that shit. I'm just not. I just don't. This is not the place, and I will have that conversation with you later. But I part of me just gets like a little bit angry that why are you bringing that ugliness here? It's not the place for it, type of thing. I guess.
I
Yeah.
feel it's related to what you have control over.
Yeah.
And like Diana is saying, is she has control over how she's going to react in a situation. And we all have that sense of control. And since it could be so complicated, the unkindness, you don't know the source. It could be a huge iceberg and you have no idea. But I agree. I mean, in that situation, I can only control myself and the direction of where I want things to go. And if we need to move on, like you said, I'm not going to give it the fuel because that's going to be a flame you can't really control later. But I do agree with what you're saying, Laura, that if you don't address it, are you pretty much saying it's okay? I think addressing it is a different space and time. And you'll kind of know the right moment. Like, Diana said, if it's public, then that's probably not the best, time and place. And at the same time, we've all had the moments. I know there's been times that I have not been kind. And it's not until after the fact that I replay it in my head, because that's what we do as women. We replay these scenarios over and over, that I was like, whoa, I could have been better there. So I think for the sake of both parties involved, address it, but at a later time when it is not so heated.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah. I also like to come at it. I'm not good at this yet, but I like think of it. I try to get better, like, calling out the behavior, but not in a rude way. So
Right.
like, as an example, recently I had someone using sarcasm in, a disagreement. And I was like, I hear your sarcasm and I get that you're trying to make a point, but it's not productive. And that, like trying to address it in a way that's not rude or mean or unkind, but not letting them get away with it either.
Right.
Would
So
shut
I
me down
appreciated
if
you
Emily
talking to
said
me
that
that
to
way.
me.
Emily, I appreciated you saying that to me.
Sarcasm is not okay, Suzanne.
Oh, Jen, stop it. So Diana
but-
has the best Go ahead. Sorry, Emily, and then I'm going to
We're-
ask Diana to say something.
No, we're probably thinking the same thing. So I was thinking something Diana said to us, not to us,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
it might be
Diana,
the same thing.
what's your go-to when somebody? Do you remember what we were talking about?
Like if I'm in a meeting and somebody attacks me, like or verbally,
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
of my, then I will say, or what makes you something to the effect of, I'm surprised that you feel comfortable speaking to me that way, or can you tell me why you feel comfortable speaking to me that way? Because I feel like as the leader of the department, the rest of my team is looking at me to say something. And I feel like if somebody's going to say something rude or attacking me, I owe it to my team to be strong. I owe it to my team to be the leader and to nip it right then and there. And so I feel like if I don't want to ignore it, and because then I'm telling my team it's okay to talk to me like that or to talk to anybody like that. And so I curiously do want to know, like in this environment right now with everybody here, what makes you comfortable enough to say that to me? Just, I mean, in a nice way, just tell me why do you feel you can do that? That's all.
I appreciate that.
I haven't had anybody give me a reason.
Okay. What did they say to you?
Right?
Do they just stare?
It just stops
They
it.
just back down.
Yeah, because I mean, what are they going to say? I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what they're going to say. What are they going to say?
I love that because you can talk about culture all day, or you can say that you have a certain culture in your district or whatever it is, but like the lowest behavior you allow is the culture that you have. And so I know if I see people doing that, I'm like, what the heck? Like it just, for the people trying to be on the right side of things and being respectful, they see that.
And I really want my team to know that they don't have to put up with that either. And half of my team is out at the sites, and they're the first line of support when the sites are panicking over something technological that's not working. That's 9 times out of 10, the site technician had nothing to do with, and sometimes they get beaten up pretty rough. They're pretty rough at the sites on them, and I want them to know that they don't have to put up with it, but I don't want them to react angrily either. I just want them to be like, hey, like, why would you be talking to me that way? Something like that. So
Laura, you have a quote. You said it, I've heard you say it at a talk, like when you go into a classroom or you go and help somebody, you want to make them feel warm and fuzzy, but you can't do that until you yourself feel warm and fuzzy. Isn't that something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think especially when you go into a classroom, you're right, because you're walking in and we talk about the power of mirror neurons, right? And so if you walk in and they're super stressed, you can either absorb what they are bringing to the party, or you can bring your positive energy. And I'm not going all woo woo, like this is actual science, right? Like, have you seen the video of the guy who is the teacher going into the classroom and he stops outside the classroom and he like straightens his tie and puts a big smile on his face and takes a couple deep breaths? And have you seen that? If you haven't, I'm going to find out. But it's so cool because, you know, it's like attitude matters or something like that, right? And he totally like psychs himself up and then goes, huh, and then goes into the classroom. So he's taking like that really positive stuff in there, right? And then, you know, people are going to respond to that. And I think I've talked about that, like, yeah, because we talked about it, right? Like when you're a site tech, like you're walking into a classroom, a teacher is like, ah, you know, their computer's not working, they've got kids, you know, crazy, you know, we've all been there, right? And we can walk in and either be a part of their crazy or we could bring our peace.
Mm-hmm.
And what a gift to bring to people, you know, just to walk in and even look them in the eyes and just take a breath. Don't
Mhm.
even say it, but yeah, you
But I
know,
mean, I think that applies to everywhere, right? Like it's the
everywhere.
same thing. Somebody's being nasty to you, you have the ability to react. And that doesn't mean so your question, I think what your question through me is like, if you ignore it, are you accepting it? You're not accepting it. You're trying to show them how you should treat other people.
Yeah. And especially when sometimes we like react in a way. There's a truck driving behind Emily right now. That distracted me. I got a dog's butt, but you got a truck. You know, like if we walk, I've heard people say, well, you know, I'm just gonna be nice. You know, who said it just now? Like, I'm gonna be nice because it's gonna drive them crazy, you know? And I'm like, that's not
It is. My mom used to say
is.
killing them with kindness or something like that.
Right?
Yeah. But I think, yeah, I think that I just wonder, like, as if we have a collective, like this group, right? Like, as we all spend time together, we create a dynamic of really positive acceptance and positive behavior. Like Diana and I were at a conference, I don't remember which one, but there was a young woman who was lovely, and but she was by herself and she was really young. And so she wouldn't normally be somebody that I'd be like, oh, come sit with us, you know, for no good or bad reason. But Diana was like, come sit with us. And I was like, oh, crikey, that's right. We're supposed to be good people, you know? And so, like, I just wanted to hang out and talk with Diana. But, you know, so she came and joined us. And that's the kind of thing, you know, instead of that exclusionary, even unintentional stuff that we do, I'll say I do sometimes, right? Like, what can we do next to create that culture and expand it? You know what I mean? So that we don't have the, you know, I think you were talking, Sapani, about the circles, right? Being very intentional about choosing the people in our circles and choosing the circles that we join.
Yes.
Because, yeah.
Your circles, it's kind of like that's your I'm gonna say like that's your posse that really kind of supports you. I know it's your posse, but I remember early on as a mom and you know thinking I had to join every mom group there was because that was the thing to do. But it wasn't the fact of joining as many mom groups as I could find. It was more about finding the people, whether they were moms or not, that would support me and I would support them and we would support each other through all of the road bumps along the way because no one knows what they're doing half the time. So that imposter syndrome applies more to just our profession, but our personal life too. But that is more valuable in terms of like building your circle of trusted people that are going to have your back no matter what. And it is have your back even when they need, you know, you need to have like, hey, this is not a good moment of yours. And be able to call you out on it and then not feel that that was going to end our relationship together, you know. That is so much more important. And you need that in the workplace. You need that in your personal life. And however you can do it is, you know, get it done. I mean,
right. You need to seek out that circle, right? You need to find it. Yeah.
And it's not just going to happen.
Right.
Usually not, I guess randomly it could, but you have to be intentional about it. And that means we have to kind of go outside of our introvertedness. And like, that's part of that taking the mask off too, because if you go into a circle with your mask on, then that's not authentic and that's not going to last.
Yeah,
and it would be exhausting.
And it's exhausting.
Yes.
Yeah. And I remember as a mom of children who are less than who are slightly off. They're just not the traditional kiddos, like I was so shocked. I guess because I adopted my kids when they were older. They were 8 and 9, so we didn't come into anything traditionally. And I just expected that me and my kids would be accepted into these mom groups. Like when I showed up, like almost like I had a pass once I had kids, got kids, and they weren't. And I can look back and understand why. Like these kids have been together since birth, you know what I mean? And so, but it was so isolating to try to fit into circles that weren't mine. They weren't my space to be in. Nothing good, bad, or otherwise. They just weren't it. But I just didn't go further. Like Sapani said, like we got to go out and find them. If one doesn't work, we got to find the next one. And again, that can be exhausting, especially when you're a new mom and you're trying to figure, I forgot to put, so, my biggest drama was when my kids first showed up, we took them and they went swimming. And my sister-in-law at the time, after about 3 hours, she's like, "Did you put sunscreen on them?" And I was like, "No, was I supposed to?" I had no idea. How would I know? I mean, common sense would say you put sunscreen on the children, right? But I didn't know. I was so overwhelmed. I was so stressed. My kids were, whiter than me, like practically see-through. They were so burnt. And this was my first like public experience as a mom. And so huge fail, right? Like the woman who was my sister-in-law, let me know that meant I wasn't a very good mom and maybe I wasn't cut out for this thing and all sorts of stuff, instead of maybe at the beginning saying, "Hey, by the way, put sunscreen on the kids." Like you see when somebody's sunscreening up their children or not, Anyway, so I don't think it was intentional on her part. I think she just didn't think about it. But it was the whole point. All those circles that I tried to fit into, they weren't mine. But I really tried to force it instead of doing exactly what Spawny's saying and doing like this. Like we have created our circles very organically through common interests that we share, but we all kind of have not tiptoed into it, but we didn't just dive in, right? We've taken small chances. We get positive feedback. We get evidence. We keep going, keep going, keep going. So I think it's that kindness that we get back, and then we go, "Oh, okay, we can do this again," and then our circles don't always end up looking like we thought they would. And it's cool. So I just realized I was talking a lot, so I stopped in case. Or you're all cutting me out.
Well, because I'm thinking like, because we all have those stories. I remember trying to get into like my daughter was in dance, and so I tried to be with the dance moms, and I just couldn't. I tried other groups, and then they'd complain about the school district, and I'd be like, And then, like I don't want to, because I would start to be like, well, this is why this happened, and this is why the school's doing that. They don't want to hear any of that. They didn't care. They just wanted to complain, and so I couldn't do that. I always felt like, God, I get along better with the guys. Like I just want to be in the guys group. Let me just go sit with the dads, and then they didn't want me either. So it was like it was a lot of trying to fit in, like making myself fit in, which again, like Stefani says, was exhausting. I was exhausted. And sometimes I'd feel like, oh my God, I have to make up stories because I do not have any stories that fit with the circle. And it was just too much, too much.
That is.
Yeah.
And then you just isolate, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yes.
Because I'm like, nobody likes me and I don't like anybody. So I'm just going to be by myself and my many husbands and my hundreds of kids, and that's it.
This totally reminds me of, so my husband and I are nerds, and we're proud nerds, very proud nerds. And so we raised our kids to also be nerds. And then, and we were doing such a great job, at least I thought we were. And then I was at 8th grade, our daughter came up to us and said, "Mom, I want to be a cheerleader." And my husband and I were like, "What?" Cheerleading.
Yeah.
And then but then again, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be supportive. And I was like, hey, sure. We had never put her in dance. We had never put her in gymnastics. And I said, well, you know what, honey, I try out for the squad. Go ahead. I don't ever want to hold you back from, going towards something. And if you get on, then we'll absolutely support you. And then like, I don't know, 6 months later, I'm wearing bling as a cheer mom. Yep. But I was trying so hard to fit into that cheer mom culture that what you said, Diana, if you were to take a screenshot of that moment in the football stands, I'm by myself, like right here. And then the other cheer moms are right here. And I didn't know the cheers to go along with the cheerleaders because I kind of thought it was for them. But shame on me. I should have learned. But I was so isolating and, you know, wearing this bling stuff and trying to fit into this. And I had to learn the lingo. And eventually I was like, you know what? I could support in my own way. I don't have to fit into this mold to support my daughter. I could still show up to every game and cheer the cheerleader, which was awkward, by the way. I had to learn that, and that was okay. That was totally fine. But I had to allow myself the grace to be able to support in my own way without feeling like I had to fit this mold, because it was just more disastrous for everyone involved.
It's not a
Must have
good
been pretty
feeling
entertaining.
either.
No,
It wasn't
it's
a good feeling.
not.
And then they would have like cheer parties where all the moms
Yeah.
come. And again, now I'm at somebody's house in their backyard, like, what time is it? Like, am I like, because I just did not, they all knew each other from everything. And I always felt like, what am I doing here? And, you know, so it was awkward. But yeah. So the point is, you got to find the group that you can be authentic with. Somebody, you know, people that you can talk to, really talk to.
I think you guys bring up a good point though. And I think that's one thing that I think maybe we're not super unique, but we are unique in a way that you can go into a situation and be okay not being part of a group. You're not putting on that mask to fit in. You're okay being your authentic self and not, you know, you can probably walk to the bathroom by yourself too, where I know women who cannot do that, right? Like even at work, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's a really important thing, and what a great thing to model for your daughters too, that just because you have a shared interest doesn't mean you have to be less of who you are.
Oh, that's a mic drop.
I like that.
That's really
You
good.
know?
Yeah. Because it's hard. It's that whole, you know, get kicked out of the tribe, you know, like we always say, I don't want to get kicked out of the tribe because I'm going to have to live alone. I'm going to get eaten by a bear and die. You know what I mean? It is that basic, like that's primal for us. And we can recognize that, you know, if we don't fit in as a cheer mom, you know, using that example or whatever, it doesn't mean that we're going to have to go live on a hill by ourselves. Like there are other ways that we can find our place. But I think that's not everything. I know there was a space in my life where I couldn't have known that. Like I didn't have the emotional strength, the emotional capacity. I didn't have the bandwidth. I'm going to use our bandwidth. I didn't have the bandwidth to go out there and figure out how to find other people, you know, that were like me or whatever. So I'm not sure what we can do. You know, what can we do besides like what we're doing today, having these authentic conversations, reaching out, finding people and, you know, bringing them in, you know.
But also, you
What
know,
can we do?
I wasn't open to it either. So that's the other thing is after a while, you just kind of close off and you just suffer in silence. And until you open yourself up, you know, you're not going to find anything because you're not looking, basically.
Yeah, you're not attracting them.
You're not open to it. So
I was thinking as you guys were talking, because I'm like, how did I end up in this group? And like, I think it probably started with Laura, because I went to a conference that Laura was speaking at and emailed her afterwards because it was amazing. And it was like the best presenter I've ever seen outside of like, you know, major people or whatever. And I think that kind of started it. But then I was like, well, how do we replicate this for people that don't have that? And I just started thinking, like, if you can go to a cheer mom group, but if that's like not that you're not passionate about your daughter or things she's interested in, but maybe that's not like, some people are cheer moms and that's like their identity. So it's like for me, being good at my job and caring about education and kids and things like that is part of my identity, I feel like. And so like that's you guys too. So going out and finding things that like really speak to your heart and your soul, and going to those communities, because that's where you find the people that are going to be really open to you and who you are as a person, I think.
I like that.
And Emily, you were intentional about that. I mean, you felt something when you went to go see Laura speak, and you didn't just walk away going, "Oh, that was cool." But you actually, you know, you were active. You emailed her, you reached out. And I think that's what women need to do, is we have these ideas, but we don't always follow through with letting the ideas blossom into something. And look at what happened because you did reach out.
Yeah, and like putting yourself out there. We were talking about, I don't know how this came up earlier, but just there's something I'm presenting or whatever. And I just thought about Kathy Hoffman came and spoke to our school district or our tech team. And something that she said really spoke to me. And I won't actually run for public office, but it was just when you do those things, when you put yourself out there or you say something or you're vulnerable or whatever it is, like you don't realize who it's going to connect with or what impact it's going to have. But almost every time you do that, you're probably going to impact someone in some way and you just don't know what it is. So just, I'm very introverted, but I've kind of made it part of my goal to put myself out there, whether it's presenting or connecting with people or whatever it is, and just hoping that it means something to someone.
I've learned
You know,
a lot
that's the
from,
first thing, Emily, you ever said to me.
What was that?
what's that?
When I first met you, the first time I met you, you were ASTE president, or you were becoming ASTE president, and you told me, I'm introverted and I'm doing this because I'm going to focus on, you know, getting out there and public speaking. And that's the first thing you said to me. I was so impressed. I was like, that's wonderful. And you did great. I mean, you would never know. You did awesome. But it was one of the first things. And then you had to go up in front of the, so was it the CIO, CTO forum, and you had to get up on, I remember you were nervous and it was awesome. But that's, I remember that was the first thing you said to me.
Yeah, being uncomfortable in the things that make you uncomfortable. Just try to keep growing, I guess.
Emily's like one of those that like drops like amazing wisdom bombs, you know, like I'll talk. And then Emily will come in and just be like, boom, and it's mic drop moment. And then I'm like, you know, and so I've learned a lot from Emily. This is We Love Emily moment. We're going to do this. Like I've learned so much from Emily about not talking all the time. I don't want to even like, I know you guys are going to laugh because I know I never stop talking, but I've actually learned from her to hold space for other people to talk or to be a little bit quiet at times. I'm still not great at it, but you know, the less you say, the more you get heard type of thing, you know? So I think it's really cool. And the fact that like Emily took the time to send that email, I think I talk about it almost every time I present anywhere or anything because it was so impactful. And I don't think we recognize, it goes back to that where the mask we wear, the imposter syndrome that we walk around with, that I don't know if it was, but like if it were me, I know I've been nervous to compliment other people because I'm like, oh, they're not going to think they're going to think that, you know, of course they know they're great. And I'm not saying this about that, but I'm saying other, you know what I mean? Like other people like, God, they got to know how great they are, you know, or how much impact they have, but nobody does. And
Right.
it doesn't hurt to tell them, you know? So why wouldn't we, you know? So
True.
I think, okay, we got about 10 minutes.
Oh my God.
I know. And we have a bunch of other things. I'm like actually looking at my notes because one of the things that I thought was really cool, two things about mentoring. So we've got three different things. We've got, you know, how do we find our circles? How do we help? So what literal action steps can we take and can we guide other people to take to help people find their circles when they're not in a space where they can reach out? You know, like Diana said, you got to be open to it, and you do. And sometimes we got to go get them. You know what I mean? If people are in a darker space. Positive gossip, I think we should talk to a little bit. I love Diana talking about the mammogram mobile. I think we should throw that in there. And then I'd also love to talk about, you know, how we respond. We've talked a little bit about it, but really how do we, why do we respond so strongly to something negative and not so strongly to something positive? So where do you guys want to go? There's like three different things. Pick one. Dive in.
Tell the mammogram story.
Mammogram story.
So my mammogram story was more about women supporting women. So the fact that we are looking out for each other and that we're more cognizant of what's going on in the women around us and that we're positively speaking about them when they're not there and just building each other up, whether they know it or not. But so the mammogram, the mobile mammogram comes around our district once a year in March for staff members. And every year they get more and more people, more and more women that make these appointments, and they added an extra day this year. So I was all excited, and I went in to make my appointment, and at 4 days we're booked. 4 days. And these are like 10-minute appointments all day. For 4 days we're booked. So I went into my boss, the assistant soup, and I let her know that I could not get an appointment. And she was like, oh, don't they have a waiting list? And she kind of got a little bit like stressed out. And I said, no, this is great news. This is wonderful news that the women in our district are taking care of themselves. This is huge. And she looked at me like, well, didn't you want an appointment? I said, well, yeah, I do. And I'm on the waiting list, but I think it's a positive thing. I think it's just positive that every year more and more women in our district that we work with, our coworkers, are taking better care of themselves. That's something that we weren't doing years ago. It just was not. We're too busy. I mean, too busy. So it's just amazing. It was just amazing to me. And usually mammograms start at 40. So it's not even all the women in our district. It's just the ones over 40. That's a lot of women. That's got to be all of them. I swear. I'm just amazed that all those slots are gone, like months in advance. So not just that we're taking care of ourselves. We're planning on taking care of ourselves. I don't know. I just found it exciting and just positive. And I know she looked at me, my assistant soup looked at me like I was insane, but I was just like, this is just great. Like, we need to tell people. She was like, okay.
Mammogram. Yeah.
Might be a HIPAA violation, but yeah, let's tell the world.
Let's tell the world. But that's,
That's so
and
powerful,
like,
though.
yeah.
I was gonna say, like, I'm so feel so strongly that like so education specifically, people realizing they need to take care of themselves and put boundaries around work and home life and all those things is like so foundational to education not failing with all the challenges that are happening. So it's like a small sign, right? But that's huge on its own, that people are taking the time to go do that and that they're valuing their health and their happiness.
I felt very like girl power. I felt it was very exciting when I found out. So
I think that's cool. And it's the culturally embracing the idea of balance and, bringing health and vocation together. And you can't go, you can't say enough good things about it being just an example. So we've got to build more of that. So now we've got physical health being prioritized. So, the next, frontier to me is the emotional, mental, the brain, body, mind health. Like, how do we, really support that in our kind of always on, busy as a badge of honor culture, especially in education? We know that. You got somebody, who's good at what they do, you give them more to do. Like, how do we stop, how do we not continue to support or encourage that? So we've got physical wellness. We need like a mammogram, like an emotional mammogram mobile to come to the district and,
Does that
do
exist?
10-minute wellness sessions. You know what? I think we're going to create it. I think
I love that idea. I
I got a
mean,
minivan.
emotional intelligence. Here we go.
I got a minivan. I am slapping something on the side of it, and I'm going to start signing people up for 10-minute wellness. Like, come on out. And I actually worked with, I did a coach. I kind of like this. We might do something. I worked with a woman today, and she said that I need to put as a quote, think you don't have time for coaching. She said, talk to me because Laura helped me have a breakthrough in 8 minutes. And I got chills. I was like, what? And this woman's like fancy. And so, like we were talking about something and I was, peeing myself that I was even having to guide this woman through this. And afterwards, she's like, 8 minutes. It took 8 minutes to have a breakthrough. So yeah, 10-minute sessions should do it just fine. All right.
I think this is a great idea.
Yeah. Ooh, you got it? Because Emily makes stickers, so she can make us like
we can have stickers.
See, I didn't think I'd have to cut anything out of this, I'm not cutting it out, I'm leaving it. So, okay, so we've got that. We have about 5 minutes. So what I would love to do is, I don't know if it's time or if we can get one more thing in, but I would love to hear about a book that you're reading or that you recommend. Like if there's somebody, like Sapani made me think of this with the book, with the book maybe she'll talk about that book, because I know Emily's reading it now, and I think Suzanne said she's starting to listen to it. And like, what's your
I
go-to?
downloaded it. It's on my Audible. I
Downloaded
just have not listened to it yet.
I haven't listened to it yet. Yet is a key
Yet.
word. So what's our go-to books? And I might ask about
I think
quotes.
that's too hard to pick. It depends on which book I've read most recently, but I'm just going to share one that I read within the last couple. I don't read books, by the way. This was an audiobook. But I downloaded a book called U-Turn, Get Unstuck, Discover Your Direction, Design Your Dream Career by Ashley Stahl. And I downloaded it because it was free on Audible audiobook. And I thought it was going to be kind of like ditzy or whatever. I don't know what I thought. I thought I wasn't going to like it. And then I loved it so much, I bought the hard copy. And
What's it called again?
She freeze on us? I think she froze.
so
At least she froze in a more attractive position than I usually do. I'm usually like, my last job, we'd make memes of each other. We'd catch each other in bad screen freezes and make memes.
I love that.
Yeah, so we're gonna have to ask hers. Mine is You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero.
Oh,
Okay, but we got her back. So You Are a Badass, Jen Sincero. It is my go-to. I will always say that is the go-to book for anybody, especially women. She was like a life coach before there were life coaches type thing. And her book changed my life. I remember going for my first COVID vax. I was super nervous. Like I'm super like doctor phobic and everything. And I was sitting there and I actually went to the chapter on fear. And there we go. So Suzanne just dropped it and literally listened to it as I was like waiting in line, because it was so dystopian weird when we were doing that. You know what I mean? Like driving up and blah, blah, blah. People in these suits came out. So it was scary. But anyway, so You Are a Badass is mine. And Emily, do you want to finish what you were saying about U-Turn?
yeah, my internet, I need someone from the tech department to fix
Need
it.
some IT support? Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't know how much you guys heard. It's called U-Turn by Ashley Stahl, and I downloaded it and thought it was not going to be great. It was free, and I loved it and bought the hard copy book. Just really, I don't know, great. I'm going to read it again.
I'm going to download all these.
Mm-hmm.
It's U-Turn YOU.
That's cool. Yeah, and I'm dropping You're a Badass. It's how to stop doubting your.
I put it in there too.
I got that one too.
Look at you go. Thank you, Suzanne.
I know.
I love it. How to stop doubting your greatness and start living an awesome life. That's not a bad thing. Okay. Do we have any others? Or are we good on those? Oh, tell us about reality-based leadership. Can we find that one too, Sapani?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So it was our CTO who recommended this book to me. And she said that this will provide you professional zen. And so it's called Reality-Based Leadership by Cy Wakeman. And I started reading it and it was beyond professional zen because I carried it into my personal life in terms of understanding that those false narratives that you make in your brain, and then accountability and your ownership over the world that you create around you. So I absolutely love it. I recommended it to a coworker of mine, and he first downloaded it so he can listen to it while constantly driving. And then all of a sudden he's like, you know what? I need to buy the physical book because I need a journal in it. And we started having little miniature lunch sessions where we just talked about it and like what chapter you're in. And it really provided a lot of clarity in both of our lives. But the book I'm honestly reading right now is the EdTech leadership book because of CETL going on by Mike Doherty and trying to highlight every acronym there is.
This one?
Yes, there it is. That's the one. It even came with me on spring break. But yeah, I kind of bounce between a lot of different books. And then I have also like my personal fiction books that I like to read too. So I know.
I love a good like fun novel.
Mm-hmm. Love
The
my
new-
crime stuff with Jodi Picoult, you know?
I knew we'd get there. I knew we couldn't get out of here without murder.
I know.
Coming to the conversation. 2:59. We almost made it without murder. Suzanne, what were you going to say?
Ooh. I was gonna say I don't like reading. I like just reading fiction. I have to listen to the nonfiction stuff more than anything. I don't know if it's just I've been so done with school for so long that the thought of reading something that isn't just for fun just really it's hard for me. So that's why I'm listening to the sci book and love
Makes
the
sense.
first 2 chapters so far. Love that they were like, if there's drama in your workplace, it's probably you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, that's
It
hard.
was a little harsh at the beginning, but I think I love how real that is. And
yeah.
then she's like, you create your own reality. So, you know, what reality are you going to create now? It's like,
Mhm.
you're right. Oh, you're right. It's like they literally cleaned the mirror with Windex and everything's like so crisp.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. And you're like, damn. But okay. Yeah. It's the Ted Lassoism that, the truth will set you free, but first it'll piss you off. And that was, and I can't remember who actually said it. Gloria Steinem, maybe. I'm gonna have to look it up to remember to give it the proper attribution. But yeah. So, okay, this was an amazing hour. It is 3:00. We're gonna stick around for a couple minutes, but we are formally, I want to say thank you so much to each of you. Thank you. This, like I say every time, like this is like a dream to me to be able to have these authentic conversations with amazing people. And the fact that y'all are up for it is so much fun. And I learn from you every single time. So next month, who knows what's going to happen? But it is every second Tuesday at 2:00, whatever time time zone Arizona decides it's going to be in. That is the 2:00 that we're following. So right now, I think we're on technically Pacific, but we're Arizona time anyway. But thank you for being here, and we will have this posted on YouTube, and we will have the link to everybody who registered. And those of you who registered and aren't here today live, thank you. We appreciate it. We hope that you enjoy watching this or listening to this while you're cleaning, while you're driving, while you're doing everything that you're doing. But remember to, as always, put yourself first.